There we go. Well, thank you for coming back from lunch, everyone. I do appreciate it. Gavin, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And, well, I was allocated the topic, conforming businesses are smart businesses. But I actually wanted to add to that, and it's ethical conforming businesses are smart businesses. Like you, I also went to ChatGPT. And what I discovered was conformance and compliance is such a massive topic that there is no way I could have covered it in 30 minutes. So I had to just identify a couple of areas that I felt was important. And considering the speakers that have come before me today, I hope I will do it justice. So let's jump in. One of the things women battle with is to boast. And I'm going to give you a couple of reasons why I should be on the stage talking to you today. First of all, I have 28 years of participation in the transport sector. I started when I was 21. 23 of those years was running a very successful transport and logistics company in a very niche environment of moving 67% of the OEM's products from assembly to dealer. And I delivered as far up as Rwanda and Uganda. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I sit on the steerco of RTMS on the SAB S241 committee. I'm the chairperson of the RFA RTQS interest group. And I sit on Women in Transport. I have a master's in business, and for that, I did it because my company went through absolute failure, through chronic fraud, and I had to justify why I was in the industry, and I went to do my master's after 22 years of running the business. But my final dissertation was on the underrepresentation of women in the transport sector. I have 7 business awards. I'm a freelance writer for Focus magazine and for Check, and I am the creator of a global gender and diversity program called Iron Women, which has just been launched in a 6th country. So I am really very excited to be here. Like you, I was in Sweden in February this year. I was invited by Volvo Trucks to speak to 41 countries, represented by over 220 vice presidents of the Volvo Group. And I got to drive their electric vehicle. And I only realized yesterday, and it was really such a grey moment, when I climbed into the Iveco outside, that I was sitting on the wrong side of the vehicle when I drove it. I did not even connect to being on the left-hand side of that vehicle. It was just so simple. And as I sat in this vehicle, and the driver trainer went through the controls, and he said, right, let's go. And I said, okay, where do I put it on? He said, it's been on the whole time. It was incredible. So go have a look at my article in Focus magazine on the early movers. But having said that, at $6.5 million for just the horse, plus your charging station, the 2 that have come into South Africa, I mean, it's a $14 million investment that KDG has just made. And I know Mercedes-Benz is working with a project as well, as is Scania. I think it's going to be an incredible journey. But that's not what I came to talk to you about. You see, I've digressed already. So let's get this thing going. I'm going to just address 2 areas of ethical conformance, and that's well, for me, ethical conformance is the compliance to a set of moral and ethical standards. Guys, I can't read that screen at the back there, so I apologize. And I want to deal with some areas of legal and regulatory and the standards, and then corporate social investment. So it took me 2.5 years to register my certified body to be able to do RTMS certification. There is no guidance and there's definitely no assistance in trying to set up that CB. But one of the things that really has frustrated me is when I look at the recent months, or actually about the last 18 months, the transport industry has come under terrible scrutiny for the apparent lack of conformance and compliance to our legal and regulatory standards, what appears to be corruption, poor operational control, and the way our drivers are managed. Now, we've heard a lot about drivers today, and I'm going to touch on this as well. But looking at who's in the room, I don't want to talk to the converted because, I mean, you are the elite of business and you already comply. The people that should be in the room are not represented here, which are our micro enterprises and our small SMMEs. And we needed them here because they are the companies that need standardization the most. As Gavin was saying to me earlier, it's like planting a tree and putting a stake and straightening that tree. And as the tree grows, it'll grow straight. We don't try at the end to take a weeping willow and straighten it up. And I think that this is where we are sitting at the moment, is that it is really a very challenging environment to get organizations back on track when they have been poorly managed and outside of the framework of the legislation. On one of the WhatsApp groups, I was reading how in the hazardous chemical industry, the guys overload deliberately. And as they get pulled over at the weighbridge, the fine is a hell of a lot less than the value of the overloading. And because we can't dump a hazardous chemical at those facilities, the driver gets the fine and he continues on his journey. I mean, legislation says that, or the proposed legislation says that the law enforcement should actually travel with that driver to a secure area to offload the extra weight, but it doesn't happen that way. So these companies will continue to overload. But that is only one element around not conforming. What is the message that you send to your driver when you put him on the road and you overloaded his vehicle and you told him just to bring back the fine? Why does he or she need to behave any better than you as the operator that made that decision? And that is one of my challenges. The other one is foreign nationals. I was talking to the Western Cape Growers Association this week, and they were telling me about how there's this economy, this informal economy where foreign national drivers are stealing 20 to 40 litres. You don't pick it up on a 400 litre plus tank, and they are selling that to the informal fuel stations where the foreign national operators are buying not only their diesel, but also the components that have been stolen off the vehicles, along with the batteries, spare tyres, and so forth. When you make the decision to appoint a company that does not have the same standard as you, when you have aligned yourself to ISO or to SQAS or even RTMS, but you appoint a subby because they're cheaper. When you use foreign national drivers and you know that you don't manage them, these are all the areas that I feel that make up this section. Now, what it does, and it's going to talk to the second area there, is it impacts on your corporate social responsibility. This is a really important slide. So we all know about diversity, equity, inclusion. Diversity is like all the different colors and shapes of a puzzle piece. That's what we are, a diverse audience sitting here. Inclusion happens when we put all the puzzle pieces together and we all work together to achieve a goal as an organization. But what is challenging is equality and equity. Equality is giving everyone the same opportunity, equal opportunity to achieve in an industry. What we actually need is equity, where there are certain genders, sizes of company that need a little bit more to achieve the same outcome. And this is where my gender conversation comes in. After writing my master's final dissertation, spending 24 months interviewing companies, speaking to drivers, I made a commitment to act on that outcome. And I spoke publicly for quite a few months, and while everyone had their head down during 2020, I designed a program called WeWit, Women Inspiring Women in Transport. And the idea was to help organizations conform to your employment equity requirements, to conform with your preferential procurement requirements. And to achieve that, we secured $2 million from USAID to develop it's actually now, because we've done such a great job in the first 18 months, we were awarded another million. So we have $3 million, plus we have the private sector having given us just over $500,000. We are developing 200 young men and 570 women from vulnerable communities to become competent truck, bus, courier, and motorbike drivers. We are boosting our economy by mentoring and coaching 300 female entrepreneurs within the transport ecosystem. We are fostering growth of 120 female leaders, but this is the one that the minister spoke about this morning. We are establishing safer stops in a new association, which I will talk about. And you look at that and think, well, Nicci, you know, if you ran a company, and I had very, very unusual truck carriers that could transport 3 to 4 commercial vehicles on a trailer at a time, why are you developing motorbike drivers? And the reason being is that when I started this program in Johannesburg, it was easy. We implemented 2 years. Iron Woman was the start in 2019. I had mapped out what I wanted. And then I thought, well, let me go take it to Cape Town. And I got to Cape Town. And it didn't work the way it worked in Johannesburg. I mean, nothing works the same way in Cape Town as it does in Johannesburg. And the ladies all started arriving, and I met with UCT first to understand what am I dealing with the communities, and they took me up to Atlantis and asked me to interact with the women from Atlantis, one of the most impoverished communities that gets very little finance. Oh my God, look at this time. I've got so little time left. And anyway, so the first ladies came in, and as we were assessing them, there were 2 types of drivers. One from the Eastern Cape that had a code 10 but couldn't drive. And one from the Western Cape that didn't have a license but could. So the Cape Colours of Cape Town have all driven their husbands' vehicles, boyfriends, partners' vehicles, but they don't have a license. And they would say to me, no, they will just get stopped, it's fine. And they'll take the fine because they needed to move around. But it was the journey of watching these women change from being unemployed, having no hope, not having any confidence in themselves, and becoming an extra heavy truck driver. I only took the ladies that had a license, and still do, by the way. We're only halfway through this program. This program ends in 2025 if we don't secure new funding. We only took the ladies that had driving experience to extra heavy. And the ones that didn't, we took to C1 so that they could get access to the courier industry. But when the ladies came to be interviewed, the ones that couldn't drive, or the ones that could barely drive, as they climbed into the truck, and we were only testing them on that little red UD outside, they would look at their steering wheel, they would look at their gears. Now, when I ordered that vehicle from UD, and it's a sponsored vehicle, I insisted on getting a manual because I needed the ladies not to become lazy in an automatic because it's so easy. Or their feet, but they never looked 2 or 3 vehicles ahead of them. And I realized that the privilege that I had growing up, riding a bicycle, developing some observation skills, not having a cell phone when mom and dad drove our car around, we had to participate in their journey. That doesn't exist anymore. And most of our drivers have the worst mentors, the taxi drivers. So we decided to create a motorbike category. This is the 19 to 23-year-old category. And I thought, cool bananas, here we go. We're going to get motorbikes, and this will be my future pipeline of truck drivers. They will have the observation skills. They'll have the ability to navigate stress and traffic. They're going to have to look ahead at the next intersection as to how they're going to behave. And then we thought, well, how do we test them? We've had to buy bicycles. So I've gone from an extra heavy 6x4 truck tractor training to testing ladies on bicycles to see if they can balance and keep a bicycle upright so that they can then move on to a motorbike. And then just out of interest, what was quite interesting is that ladies, and many black ladies, you have braids. These do not fit into helmets. And we've come up with the most amazing challenges that we've had to, especially if the braids sit on top of their head. So it has been an incredible journey so far. Guys, these are the people, and the slide looks terrible. I'm sorry, I don't know what's happened to it. These are the companies that have made it possible. When I arrived in Cape Town, if it wasn't for Unitrans sponsoring a vehicle with the support of Petite Forrester, who has now employed their third female driver, we would not have been able to open this branch. USAID is our primary financial sponsor. Western Cape and the Gauteng Department of Transport has just come on board as of Saturday last week. Every one of the companies, and there are many more companies behind this, but every one of these companies has offered a resource. Volvo gives us our 6x4 truck tractors. We have 2 of them. UD has given us our 8-ton market in order to go into career space. Hollard sponsors the trailers and computer labs to educate our drivers on computer literacy because many of them had never even worked a laptop. And I wanted to make sure that should these ladies become pregnant, that wasn't the end of their journey. They could go into the office and become office assistants, and their careers could continue beyond being truck or bus drivers. AFRIT was an incredible one. What I realized that when the ladies were going for job interviews, they'd only been driving either my flat deck in Cape Town or they were on my refrigeration trailer in Johannesburg. So AFRIT gives us access to 6 different trailers. If we are putting ladies into the mining industry, we go collect a side tipper and we do an induction on a side tipper and we educate them on a side tipper. What is our biggest challenge is this. Is finding workplace hosts. Without OneLogix, and OneLogix is the company that bought me out, and little did Cameron know when I said to him that part of the agreement of the sales, you'll take a pipeline of my students. You didn't know I was going to develop 1,200 people. So all of my drivers that qualify after the 6-month program in Johannesburg go into the OneLogix environment. And the MD, when he heard this, it was like, oh my God. They had never employed a woman driver. When you listen to Quinton Ruhr speak today, he will tell you it was the best decision they ever made. The fuel consumption, the reduction in accidents, the ethics of the female drivers, the vehicle sympathy has increased. Now, I know Unitrans ran some stats, and I wish we would see them one day, but we also developed some female drivers for Unitrans, and it always amazes me. One of my learnings was the difference in cultures between organizations. But I think that this will be interesting data. It's one of the most important things we can collect right now is real data on how women are performing and when you're ready to release it. Not to show men up, but to prove why you should be employing men. I've got 2 minutes and I haven't even got through my slides. Women Inspiring Women in Logistics. This is this program that we run for the development of 300 entrepreneurs. Guys, it's a call out to the transporters sitting here. The only way we are going to transform the transport sector is if you reach out to me, and thank you for the suggestion, and start to adopt an SME. Let them come into your organization. Let them learn from you. We can develop the basics, which this is all the technical stuff, helping them understand their business plan and developing a unique value proposition. And you can read this for yourself. The guru workshops, I'm so blessed. These are gurus. These are men and women that have been in the industry for 10 to 40 years that offer up their time to educate our young entrepreneurs on elements of transport. Everything from how do you understand a contract? What are the pitfalls in a contract? What does it mean to have a bankable business? What does the bank look for in your balance sheet? Or how do you even build a balance sheet? Catherine did one on social media for them. What does your social media presence look like? How do you put yourself out there? What does your profile picture look like? And who and what are you commenting on that could damage your reputation? So we do all of this, but all of this is useless without a contract. They need to take this information and they need to go into the environment and they need a small contract. This is my gorgeous drivers. Accelerate Her, guys, is a unique program. In fact, I think it is the only one in South Africa. It's all female owner. It's a lorry owner-driver program, but it's essentially an owner-driver program. These women 14 months ago were unemployed in KZN, living around the Lafarge community area. After a year of developing them to be truck drivers with the support of the Iron Woman program and One Logics down in Durban, they've now been awarded their trucks. They've got Volvos, 8-cube ready mix and 6-cube and rear tippers. Yeah, a little bit overspec'd and overpriced for what the need is, but they've got a 5-year contract from Lafarge, a brand new truck with a gold maintenance plan, and they're insured and underwritten by Discovery. And my organization will mentor them for 5 years to make sure that we transfer the knowledge that they need. So in year 4, they can buy their second vehicle. Melanie, I hope you recognize this gorgeous man. Iron Woman and Ultimate Woman is a fully funded, comprehensive and intensive driver development program. It incorporates 9 modules, technical modules, 13 soft skills, and we do a whole lot more. We do meditation, we do breath work. If I can help you control your breath when you're in a stressful environment, I can help you through an incident or an accident. We do advanced defensive and economical driving, 6 months workplace training after that to develop their skills. But if I think about what was said earlier, it's going to take 5 to 10 years to get a driver to the point that he is a professional driver. We will end up like the US with a 50,000 driver deficit if we don't start bringing new people into the industry. And why is South Africa still sitting at 1.1% female representation? Guys, I know I'm over the limit, but I just have to tell you about this. Safer Stops Association has been launched on the 13th of July in Johannesburg, and pretty much all the organizations that was on their previous slide I have started engaging with. I have got the nod from the RFA. I still need to sort out SABOA. SAPER has nodded, as well as the 2 government departments. It's a collaboration of mind and resources to improve the well-being of commercial drivers. We recognize that while we were developing female drivers, we could only keep them local. We would never get to the point of long haul because there's about 4 or 5 truck stops in South Africa that accommodate women. And the others, there's a few stunning ones that Engine runs. And Total, I better say that, but I know of Engine for sure. But Total Energy, sorry. But there aren't facilities for women. There's a fantastic study, academic study, been done on what truck drivers need. I've used that. USAID is funding this association for the first year, and it is our responsibility to make sure it survives beyond that. We will be looking at health and wellness initiatives. I want a truck stop to be a place where a driver can stop and rest. Be well rested to climb into his or her vehicle the next morning, not having had sex workers knock on their window all night to try and do business. Our drivers are suffering with sleep apnea, and when they just fall asleep, somebody knocks to wake them up to try and do business with them. And we need to look at health and wellness initiatives. We want to do a lot of this by having a clinic on site. I want to find a way with the departments that the drivers can pick up their chronic medication at a truck stop. We want to improve the overall state of the truck stops where there is at least a door and a toilet and working facilities and that they're clean. We want our drivers to be educated, and we're going to be looking at online education, and for every module they complete, they will derive a digital currency which they can then convert for food, for airtime, for electricity, a gift from Take-A-Lot to their daughter who is probably in a different province celebrating a birthday. We want to create public awareness about these heroes, these highway heroes that we talk about. And we want to do research and data to make sure we're doing the right things. I really struggle. Steve, I don't know if you're still here, we advanced this technology. We have the most amazing technology in the trucks, and now we're looking at AI. But at the end of the day, our drivers are exhausted. So we're going to vibrate their chairs to wake them up. How long does that last before they fall asleep again and they nod off? We have to look at how our drivers are being treated. I won't go into this because I'm so over time, but these are some of the things that we will be dealing with, which is chronic fatigue management. And for many of you that have heard me speak before, one of the biggest challenges our drivers suffer from is depression, being isolated from their families. They don't speak about it. Now imagine if you've got depression. You maybe have hypertension or diabetes, or you have HIV. How do you stay positive? And if you combine that with an employer that doesn't conform and takes risks and puts you at a risk, what are we creating, guys? Let's take ownership. Let's start looking within. And stop talking about culture until we get this right. It's a top-down, bottom-up approach if we're going to change the road carnage. Thank you for your time.
Some questions that have come through. That was very, very hard-hitting and a timely reminder, I think, about perspective. I think that's the word I would use. How do we address inequality and lack of participation in the transport economy for previously disadvantaged people, both women and men, in relation to the initiation of business and access to capital?
So access to capital is a really tough one. I'm not sure who asked the question because the banks are so nervous. But we need to take it back. You know, when Eskom released its big contracts a couple of years ago, and I think it was like 10 or 15 major beneficiaries of those contracts, and those contracts were then allocated to 2 or 3 companies down, and eventually some lady was awarded a part of the contract, and she traveled down the N12 and bought her truck and trailer. She got cents to the kilometer, and her company was destroyed in a couple of months. There's no mentors for our women. There's been very few mentors, even for the men that are coming into industry, unless they've had the ability to work in one of the big groups and they've come through the ranks and then gone off to start their companies. It's incredibly hard for them to understand and conceptualize the full responsibility of running a transport company, from whether it's compliance to HR to finance. Even after 20 years of running my company, I mean, it almost killed me physically from the stress. Worrying about cash flow. I don't know how many creditors I stretched beyond 90 days because there was always this priority of fuel first. And I had to have 250,000 Rand a day for petty cash because of the uniqueness of my industry. How does an organization get into it? And they can't unless we start to embrace and we start to bring these companies in and through like a Unitrans, and I know you're doing it, but offer them the ability to fund their fuel and they can pay it up, later, fund their fuel. Give them some of the big expenses covered by you as the operator and let them build their financial stability, because that's how most of these transport companies started. It needs a helping hand.
Once again, thank you for your inspirational presentation. This person says, what's your view on women and cross-border driving? Any special challenges, and how can industry assist in bridging the gap?
So I can tell you from experience that the safest part of our journey when we used to deliver trucks was when our drivers left South Africa. Yes. Now, in terms of women doing cross-border, I got the privilege to go down to Lesotho to sit with the customs. I haven't got the name right, but I went to sit with the custom officials that represent the SADC countries, and we're looking at, what customs can do at the borders. We have these informal economies. One of our biggest challenges, I think, right now of women doing cross-border is these massive queues that have arisen at the borders, and there's no facilities for these drivers. They are just literally sitting there. So how do we it's unacceptable for men, but women, where do they go to a bathroom? How do they handle the minimum hygiene if there isn't even facilities for them? So if we can overcome some of those challenges, and I know there is work being done, I would have no problem with women doing cross-border.
Would you be willing to include previously disadvantaged men, because there are still challenges as far as transformation is concerned? How does one offer one's time for your Guru program?
Okay, so that's two questions. Our program is not only about women. There was about 20% male representation across all the programs, and the reason, believe me, is that women cannot be developed in isolation of men. We need them in the classroom together to discuss their issues together and go into the workplace together to support one another. So I do firmly believe that men have to be developed. There's too many men buying a license, and it's almost impossible for a woman coming from an impoverished family to take 11,000 Rand from a family member to go get her commercial license, because that's the price. It's going to go to the men. So we definitely will develop men. I think it's really important, and our programs will continue to expand about building professional truck drivers regardless of gender. And in terms of the gurus, if you're sitting in the audience, please come find me this evening. We can broaden what we are offering already, and we need the support because my transport company was very niche. I need some of the other transporters that are transporting commodities and are doing the other activities.
Would that be the same answer to how one joins the Safer Stops Association?
Yes, and I think that this is going to be an incredible journey to watch. At the moment, we're not, as I said, it's not even about funding. I have the funding to do this. It's a critical aspect of transformation and driver health and wellness and development. And I think that once we start to collect the data and start to interview the drivers, we will soon get an understanding of their challenges that will help all of you start to change policies.